The Witness podcast is created by Blake Martin. This is episode 1 of 5, Puzzles and Games, and is made from an interview with Christopher Birnbaum. This podcast contains full spoilers for the game. It's absolutely worth the experience to try it firsthand. Even if you think you've beaten the game, there may be more mysteries to discover. If you would like to be on this podcast, please contact Blake at mannamedbam. So, this story is going to come across as self-aggrandizing, but I don't care because it's a cool story. So, when I was, I think, between 8 and 10, I was young. Mm-hmm. Late summer, brutally hot. My dad has a dark blue Volvo, and it gets really hot in the summer, especially on the black driveway. And so my dad and I, we have to get somewhere for some reason. Don't remember. Doesn't matter. Walk outside. Really hot. My dad mentions how hot it is. We get in the car. Twice as hot in the car. And my dad is frantically trying to get the keys. Frantically trying to figure out which key is for the car. Puts it in the ignition. Tries to turn it as fast as he can. And he tries to get the AC on as fast as possible, and it's just blowing hot air because the car just got turned on, and my dad's really frustrated, and he's really upset by how hot it is. And I reach over and I turn off the AC, and I'm like, Dad, you have to calm down. Just sit and chill out for a second. It's not going to kill you. Let's just sit in the heat for a second. It's going to be okay. And we sit there for 30 seconds. And just it's hot, so just pretend it's a sauna. I don't know. And then puts the keys back in the ignition, turns it on. Then we pull out without turning on the AC until we've driven for a while. And then we turn on the AC. But my dad brings that story up a lot because it changed his perspective on momentary suffering. Mm-hmm. It's not that you should ignore something unless it's an immediate concern. It's not that you should be a glutton for suffering. It's that you should always sort of be aware of how something is affecting you and always be ready to transcend beyond whatever that momentary suffering is. Mm-hmm. And some Buddhists apply that to permanent suffering. So if you have a chronic illness of some kind, then you have to sort of move through that. But this can be regularly applied to regular life and any sort of annoyance that you have or any sort of suffering that you have, even if it's sitting in a hot car for a few seconds before the AC gets cold. I sort of bring this up for 3 reasons. One, it's sort of about having an epiphany experience of I am beyond just what my body's experiencing right now, and that can lead to mindfulness. Mm-hmm. And it is kind of about being mindful. And then thirdly, Jonathan Blow's live streams, he goes into his own Buddhist techniques that he uses on himself whenever he's frustrated or something. And there's an hour and a half long thing, and it's on his YouTube channel, where it's him talking about how to transcend momentary suffering. Mm-hmm. And I was watching it with Matt live, and we were both just yeah, this is really nice. And I was thinking back to that moment with my dad in the car, and I try and think back to that a lot because I sort of lose sight of that ability that I have. Mm-hmm. But it's way more useful than you can even imagine. Mm-hmm. There's my story.
Thank you for your story.
Consciousness is a very important place to constantly return to, because that is the place in you where you are not identified to anything. where you are not agreeing or disagreeing, where you are not trying to figure out all the time. Otherwise, if you realize your analytical mind is constantly busy and trying to analyze every situation it meets, every person it meets. No? It's constantly busy. And to be in witness requires immense courage. Because the anxiety, the fear is to take control or fix something, no? So when you are in witness consciousness, it requires an immense state of surrender, an immense state of love, immense experience of trust. So returning to witness automatically will bring you to trust and love and letting go. So it's something we must cultivate as a practice, to return to that where you are just watching the play going on. Nature is playing in front of you. She's taking care of it. We falsely think we are doing. The idea of doership is as a trap, isn't it? When you can just step away from that idea of doership, you can experience more freedom, more space. And wherever there is space, there is greater access to intelligence, greater clarity. So it's a very essential practice to invite that in daily life, to where you just step back and you just, without judging, without critiquing, without analyzing, without trying to figure it out, just simply be a witness to it all, observe. In that observation itself, there is understanding. You see, that observation leads you to a greater depth of understanding. Automatically the judgment and the critique falls. There is a greater clarity. In witness, you become more and more intimate with the one who watches everything. So you know that by knowing which everything else is known. Does that make sense? It's a practice. We have to, in the beginning, we must consciously practice returning to that space of witnessing. Just pull back from pratyahara. That's what pratyahara is. Natural withdrawing of senses who are engaged constantly trying to give meaning from the world from this data that they are receiving. No? A witness is just stepping back, that your meaning is not coming from the five senses and the mind. It is coming from something deeper in you. And then you are just watching. There is profound peace in that. A great silence. You cannot witness when you have thought. So the state of witness will be accompanied, has to essentially be accompanied by an absence of thought. As long as there is thought, there is no witness. There is only thought. There will be a distance between you and thought. Thought will arise, but it will be in a distant field, not so intimate right here. It will be right there, far. So yes, we must practice it. It's a practice. Sometimes it will happen spontaneously, but other times we must invite it in our lives, where we are just simply watching without any preference, just watching, observing. Wonderful.
Need to look up something.
I definitely thought that he was going to start talking about the witness at the beginning of that video.
Yeah.
Very much not so.
So he said pratyahara, it's gaining mastery over external influences.
Okay.
So it's pratyahara.
Gaining mastery over okay.
So that's why I called the episode The Witness Consciousness, because that's like a concept.
I wonder if Blow titled it intentionally just to be searchable.
Super
Like
did.
that. Right. Right. So he was talking about absence of thought and witnessing something. So like he's talking about mindfulness, being in the moment and experiencing something without actively thinking about it. And so that sort of like ties in sort of like the empty mind thing when it comes to Indian meditation most of the time, of casting your thoughts to the wayside. And I think a lot of people get a lot out of that type of meditation practice. I do not. I very actively don't enjoy that. I get a lot out of recording my thoughts and then feeling like I can forget about them. As long as they are recorded, then I can experience stuff. And if my thoughts are not recorded, then I'm stuck in my thoughts. So I end up at the same place, but from a very different, in opposite direction. But I really like that talk. I think that it's a really interesting perspective on. There's no escaping this language. This language.
Yeah.
I think it's a really interesting perspective on that sort of approach. Yeah. Overall, I thought it was really, really solid.
Cool.
I was hoping that he would just start talking. And he's like, and so in the game, The Witness.
Oh, that's funny.
That would be very funny.
I wonder what like Zen,
Buddhists,
and Hindu, and like Christian mysticism, like people that are kind of experts in this area. I wonder what they think of this game. I wonder if any of them have played it.
I know a lot about like religion. I know a fair bit about. I know a lot about Judaism and Christianity, and I know a little bit about Zen, Chinese Zen, but like that's the extent of my knowledge for the most part. I know a little bit about Hindu because of a Christian missionary that stayed at my house, an Indian guy, and they've talked to me about sort of like how those religions work, but they have an ultimately negative view. They don't have like a prejudiced view. They don't hate Hinduism, but they are trying to put Christianity in its place. So they have like an inherently negative bias that way. So I can't take everything that they say exactly as they say it, but I do have like a general idea of like how those religions work. Yeah, the game is very Zen. It's very like it's about the God speaking to Abraham. It's about the experience of the divine, which is sort of ego death in a certain way.
What do you mean by that?
Moving beyond yourself. Yeah, it's too nebulous of a topic to really get into with any accuracy.
That's why there's a game that they spent 6-7 years making.
Yeah. The Witness isn't about ego death, though. That's for sure. I don't think so, at least.
Yeah. And there's a lot of perspectives addressed in the game.
Yeah, directly contradicting.
Yeah, like you said earlier.
I think, like, there's a few that are like placed next to each other that directly contradict each other. Like going from the monastery to the jungle, and then in the town, in one of the buildings.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Near that big puzzle with the red line that you draw. Yeah, there are a few that are like weirdly close to each other with like totally different opinions. That's cool. And the two are in the old church that's like falling apart. That's interesting. And there's like the Rupert Spira talks are about non-duality, which is like a huge concept in Hinduism. I don't know if he's a practicing Hindu. I don't even know what you call someone who practices Hinduism. But he is one of the most well-known speakers on the concept of non-duality. And a lot of what he talks about is based on concepts found within Hinduism. And then there's Gangaji, who's kind of saying the same thing, but from a totally different perspective. Yeah, it's weird. There are 6 videos. Yeah,
and they're all contradicting each other in some way.
There's like Burke, who's talking about
art sucks.
Like we need to inform ourselves with the latest technology and science to even stand a chance. And then there's Feynman, who's talking about, well, we should try and understand things just so we can appreciate things more. It's a lot less like gloom and doom. There's the clip from Nostalgia.
So cool.
What's your take on that? I want to know. That one is the hardest thing in the game.
I had actually... Do you know Extra Credits? The YouTube show?
Yes, I do.
Did you know... Have you seen their video on The Witness?
I think I have.
Okay, it's about that clip. The whole video is about that clip. So I saw that episode. I was like, that seems like an interesting idea, and then I forgot about it. I did not realize that it was the same game until much later into playing The Witness. So it's a man, he's carrying a candle across an empty pool, lit from one end to the other, because he made a promise to a man who died. Yeah. I haven't seen the film.
I have it if you want to watch it later. We can then respond to it.
Okay. That's probably a good idea. So he's doing it out of a sense of duty, not out of a sense of... It's not like a practical idea. And he has to go back. He fails a bunch of times, and then he finally does it, and he collapses in exhaustion. And then it pans out, and he realizes that it's not just a pool that he's in. He's in a gigantic, bombed-out cathedral. And you notice that the stained glass window has been digitally altered to be a perfect circle. And you're like, looks kind of like a puzzle. You go around the back, and the projector in the back is broken open, and you can do that puzzle, and from then on you can rewind and fast forward as much as you want in the game, in the videos. Everybody that I've seen talk about that clip has a very different interpretation of what it means. The Joseph Anderson video, he talks about like the futility of puzzle games, and like how they're like, it's not a very narrative focused thing, it's just kind of a mechanical exercise. It's sort of a mechanical exercise, and it's sort of like about the futility of doing anything. The Extra Credits episode, they talk about it from the perspective of having a sense of duty and trial and error, which is kind of what the game's about.
Yeah.
I sort of think about it more of the trial and error part, and secondarily a sense of duty, not to an old friend who has died horribly and you want to fill out his dying wish, but rather that like you want to finish it even though there's not a
yeah, there's no fanfare.
There's no fanfare besides shh. Like it's just telling you that you got it right. It's not Banjo-Kazooie do a little dance and Kazooie eats the jiggy. It's sort of just about that pursuit and like the sense of accomplishment that you get from that by itself.
Yeah. What I got from it, I think it was the last video I found aside from the
Where
challenge.
Where is that video?
I don't remember which one it is.
So there's the bunker. There's
the first bunker with the
first bunker. There's the desert bunker. There's the monastery/jungle bunker.
There's the on the side of the mountain, and you come out where the yellow circle is.
And there's the challenge, and then there's a sixth one.
The ship.
The ship. Yes,
I think that's the ship.
That must be the ship.
I think that's the ship.
Futility! That puzzle!
So
I love that puzzle.
I think that's the last one I found, and all the other videos struck me in a certain way. Like when I first saw Burke, I mean, I already talked about how that hit me, but one thing I didn't mention was the fact that it hit me initially because he opens saying, well, that's no better a solution than any of the others. Well, is it?
I love that. What a great opening line to that experience.
And I watched the whole episode, and they totally intentionally started it right there.
Yeah.
Like, that's like the conclusion of an 8-episode series, which is very good. You should watch it, by the way. It's on Daily Motion or something. Okay. What he's referencing in context is we should destroy all computers and we should go back to nature. And
Is that what he's saying?
kind of, you know how there's like a big explosion at the
Yeah.
beginning, and then he says, well, that's no better. It's a whole montage of him hitting computers with sledgehammers. There's like a big fire that starts the whole thing.
And
So that's what he's referencing.
it's like in the middle of a note that the video starts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that hit me initially because I had just put in a puzzle solution. I noticed there were 6 panels.
And then he said,
That's no better a solution than any of the others. So that leads me to think about all these videos
yeah.
in a certain way. And they all kind of open with something striking. Feynman is, and so it's by a backhanded, upside down argument or something. And then it's the black and white lecture. And then the Spira video starts out with like a minute of silence and him like breathing. And then he very clearly states everything that he's gonna say in that whole like 35-minute video.
Is that the one where he's sitting like this and it's like a blackish background?
Yeah,
Okay,
there's
then
like
I
a
remember
projector.
that. Yeah.
And then what does Gangaji start saying?
It's such an extreme close up as well.
Yeah. Let me.
Jonathan Blow
pull
said
it
that
up.
he was
He was at the
was
Spira
there.
talk.
He was at the. I thought
Was
he was at the Gangaji one.
I know he was at the
at-
Spira one.
Oh, he was at both.
That's crazy. That's really cool. But they all kind of start with something that makes you contemplate the puzzles you're doing.
Yeah.
And to me, it will always feel weighted towards the first one making you feel that way because it's the first one I experienced. But
It's
I
the
feel
first
like
one that you're likely to
yeah,
experience.
yeah, of course. And I kind of wonder if you found any of the others first, would it hit you that way?
I don't know. I'm not sure if I.
It's
if
impossible
it would.
to know.
Yeah.
It's not impossible to. You could think about it.
Yeah. I don't think it would.
Yeah.
But as soon as if that's the first line of the video that's in the first slot, I would put it together.
Yeah.
Because I would realize like this is right after the
Yeah.
tutorial. This is literally the first panel you see after the tutorial if you follow the path.
Yeah. We've kind of gone off the rails, but I don't care. This is something we need to talk about.
Podcast, man.
What was I getting at before all of this? You were talking about something.
Or other.
What were you talking about before I brought the videos up? Oh, we were talking about nostalgia. So nostalgia, this is what I was getting at.
Okay.
When I first saw nostalgia, I was viewing it.
You watched it?
No, when I first saw the clip in the game.
Okay.
When I first saw that, I was viewing it from this perspective of this is some sort of comment on the puzzles I'm solving and how I'm solving them and why I'm solving them. So I kind of saw the futility argument the first time I saw it. I mean, I was just as engaged as I was the first time I saw Burke. It was like this really kind of spooky feeling watching this guy try and carry a candle across somewhere. I don't know where it is. I didn't know it was the pool. I didn't know what was going on at all. But I was intently watching it the whole time. And it just, I feel like it very intentionally works on many levels, even though it's totally out of context. That's the end of like a great work of film. It's like the very end. And they just put it in there. And yet it still like said something to me. And it may be totally separate from what the film was trying to say, but it worked really well. Which is kind of crazy that it could do that.
Yes.
I don't know if it's just because I guess it's because of the state that the game put me in up to that point.
No,
I mean,
in a similar state, yeah.
if they just showed me that video, if I was just solving puzzles, I would probably be confused. But everything that led up to that made me view it a certain way. which is interesting.
Yeah.
Mindfulness.
So this has to have been after I saw an environmental puzzle. Or it could have not been. I don't know. But I wrote this. I wrote the witness reflections. That which exists but is unseen. Unknown. Too simple at first. Unless a child were to come upon it and see it immediately. This would give me a belly laugh. The mint green of fresh spruce needles, the deep green of freshly rained grass. I feel as though I'm learning. Do not ask what it is you must want, but simply want it. That's from the Gangaji one. Maybe learn from every experience. Play it for the long haul. A star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom, a dream.
Do you know what that's from?
The ending.
Do you know where it comes from
No.
originally? The Sutra. So a Buddhist text.
Oh. I did not know that.
Let me look it up.
But it
while
also
it's
references
slightly
a lot of the
paraphrased.
environmental puzzles.
It does. It's beautiful.
So A Star at Dawn is an obvious one. A bubble in a stream, the big one. A flash of lightning in a summer cloud, the big cloud one. A flickering lamp, the woman holding the lamp in the lake, which signifies when you've 100%ed it. A phantom, I don't know, a dream. I guess the actual ending sequence.
When you come back and it's as if
Nothing
has happened.
Yeah.
It's like waking up,
Yeah.
but you're in the dream again.
Yeah.
And the phantom, I guess,
I don't know what the
is
phantom.
you
Maybe.
through all of that.
Maybe you might be you.
So here's the verse in the sutra.
Oh, sick. Okay. Lay it on me.
So you should view this fleeting world, a star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom, and a dream. And then there's a different translation. As a lamp, a cataract, a star in space, an illusion, a dewdrop, a bubble, a dream, a cloud, a flash of lightning. View all created things like this.
As like individual moments, or I assume
As if they're fleeting,
Oh, okay.
I suppose. It's more clear that it would be fleeting in the first one, I think. Like the star at dawn. I mean, it's gonna
is the credits. Yeah.
a bubble in a stream. It's gonna disappear, but you can see it for now. But it's gonna disappear. A flash of lightning in a summer cloud. It's
Is
just
very
there for a
instant, yeah.
second. A flickering lamp. I mean, it's like
Off and
running
on,
out
yeah.
of oil
Yeah.
or something. A phantom. I mean, it's not even really there, I guess. And a dream. Like, you're gonna wake up and you're probably gonna forget your dream. So let me see where this comes from. This is
it's,
chapter 32.
I wonder which came first. No.
I think that if you read all of chapter 32, it's about things that are fleeting, and that's kind of the ultimate passage. It's very often quoted in lots of different things. But yeah, that's from something.
Yeah. And so, like, that's sort of like my reflections after I finished the game. I wonder if I was referring to the environmental puzzles or not, because I don't remember where I was in the game when I wrote that. I had either finished the game or beaten the challenge. And I beat the challenge after I found the environmental puzzles. Well after.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of interesting for me to reflect. I'm really glad that I wrote that down. I'm really glad that I wrote that moment down. Because it really made me sort of appreciate everything. Like, by forcing that, like, extreme Tetris effect on you, of, like, where you start seeing everything on the back of your eyelids. Haha, pause screen.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, you start seeing it everywhere. And it sort of makes you, like, re-look at the design of things. So it like sort of it definitely delves into sort of like the design of everyday things, the Norman the Norman Apple design philosophy, of like what Apple became with its design aesthetic, and philosophy, is all about sort of like experience-based design, of like human-based design. But this is like even more nature-y than the Don Norman school of thought. Like the Don Norman is like becoming invisible, like making design become invisible, so it's just a good experience. But this is like nature itself, and like how that works. Like it doesn't make any statements on whether it's emergent features or whether it's designed features. That last statement, what I wrote and what the ending quote of the game is. It doesn't make a statement one way or the other, but it does state that it's something to be observed. That's sort of like how I thought about it. And it's sort of like about learning and sort of being in touch with yourself. Like know thyself, the classic adage.
Yeah. So
it's deep. It's deep, my guy. How to design deep games. Check the checkbox. You done it.
I did it.
Thank you for listening. The Witness podcast is created by Blake Martin. If you would like to be on this podcast, please contact Blake at Man Named Bam.